I've been playing a bunch of No Rest for the Wicked, which is, I've come to realize is a pretty bad name for this game because no one can ever remember it. Like, you can't remember it.
I cannot remember it. Every time we've spoken about recording this weekend, I've said, oh yeah, that Moon Studios game.
Yeah. It's also just such a mouthful. It's like whenever I tell people I'm playing this, I'm like, No Rest for the Wicked. And they're like, what? And I'm like, it's like, did you play Ori? They're like, yes. It's like the other game from those guys. Like,
a better name would have been Wicked: No Rest. Hire me.
You see, I would have taken that any day.
100%.
Yeah, this is made by them folks at Moon Studios, creators of Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps. And no, they are not owned by Microsoft, as seems to be common perception. I recall years ago, I think just after they finished Will of the Wisps, it's a weird word. They mentioned that their next game was going to be like an action RPG. And I think most people immediately took that to think, okay, cool, they're making a Diablo-like, because ARPGs, that's what you think about.
Yeah.
No Rest for the Wicked is that, but it is the most non-Diablo-like form of this that I've ever played. It is definitely a mishmash of the loot-driven exploration of a Diablo, but then the combat and exploration of a Dark Souls, which makes for a very... Yeah, I was about to say, this is like 100% your type of game. It's a very interesting combination of ideas, and so far from what I've played, I think it works incredibly well. It is very challenging. If you're watching the footage here, you can see the sort of DNA of the Dark Souls, where like every encounter is dangerous, even if it's just a random mob or something like that. And when you encounter like two enemies, that becomes like very problematic to deal with.
Yeah. This is just the footage from when the game was first shown by IGN a few months ago.
This is what I've played. This is like the first sort of area before you get to the game's like hub, which is like a big sprawling city. And yeah, it gives you a good sense of the sort of game that you're going to be playing for who knows how many more hours. It's very slow, very methodical, but it's also got these sensibilities of like exploration that I think a Diablo doesn't have. Like, Diablo works in a very set map. You click on something, you go there. If you click somewhere where the character can't go, he just kind of like runs to a wall and stops.
Yeah.
You have direct control of your character in this game. So you're moving around with the joystick, whatever, and you've got sort of like platforming control as well. So he'll jump, like your character will jump off ledges and stuff like that, but there will be purposefully placed ledges so that you can land on different levels and explore like different areas to find secrets and stuff. You can also like shimmy against walls to find like hidden passages, which is pretty easy. They're pretty easy to hide given the like top-down perspective or isometric perspective of the game. So it's very similar to like a Souls game in that regard, where you're kind of like, the world is there for you to pick apart. There's also elements like you don't have bonfires. You have these like areas where you can save your game. You create like a checkpoint, and then you've got shortcuts that lead you closer back to that checkpoint. You don't lose experience when you die, but your weapons do take like a durability hit every time you die. So there's like, there's a bit of balancing in the way, so it doesn't feel as punishing when you die like in a Souls game, but also like the combat makes up for that in its challenge, because it also has to be very loot driven, which I don't think a Souls game is, but a Diablo is. You get tons of loot from enemies. You can do things like upgrade weapons, enchant weapons. You can slot different runes into slots on your weapons that then unlock alternative attacks, which is quite interesting. So you've got your standard attack, and then you hold down a button and you've got like a radial menu of like 4 button presses that can each be special attacks, and then you can customize those on a weapon by slotting these runes in. So you can give yourself like a spell that you can cast, or like a area of effect, sword swipe or something like that. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I like the weapon enchantment system. It's quite interesting. In an RPG you usually have like color grading on your different rarities of weapons.
Yeah.
I think Diablo's like blue, yellow, orange, and green, something like that. Anyway,
green, blue. Yeah.
So this one works in a similar way, but when you enchant a weapon, you actually have the ability to slot into like 3 different not rarities, but 3 different classes. So you can get like blue, which enchants your weapon. It gives it like stat buffs, but removes some of your rune slots. So you have to trade like raw damage output or the potential for like really good rolls for like actual abilities that you can equip or gems that you can equip. But sometimes you can enchant a weapon and it becomes like plagued, I think it's called, where you will have really good buffs on it, but you'll have one really massive negative debuff that you can like decide whether you want to put up with or not. But once you enchant a weapon, you can't unenchant it. Like you've just got to roll the dice on that and hope that it rolls something that you deem, like usable. And then you've got like legendary weapons that you can only find. You can't enchant like a legendary weapon. It's like a cool risk reward system that, I've only just seen it, but I want to see more of it and want to see like how much loot do you actually get that encourages you to enchant things, or not take the risk at all with this thing. So if you're watching the footage now, there's like a massive boss fight. Please tell me if that looks like Ludwig from
100%
Bloodborne. Yeah, 100%. He's got a moveset very similar to Ludwig. The boss, listen, I died to this boss like twice before I beat him. And again, it comes down to like understanding that this game is like stamina management and patience. And once that clicks in your brain, you kind of understand this game. The big criticism I have right now is, can you spot where the stamina bar is?
It's like on screen, but it's very little.
It's like around your character, which is like, I don't understand why they chose to do that, because firstly it's a very dark green that they've used for the stamina bar, and while I'm like rolling around and like avoiding this enemy, I can't tell how much stamina I have left. So a lot of the times I'm leaving a lot of stamina on the table because I don't know how much I have, so I'm just not going to take the risk. So that needs to be by the health bar. Like I just don't understand why. That's a pretty tried and tested way to represent that that data. So I don't get why it's around your player. It's the same that goes for the poise bar. The red thing around your character is their poise, similar to Sekiro. So you can have like your stance break or not, depending on how many hits you take. And that's also like, I can't see that information when I need it. So the game's in early access, so I'm sure they're taking a ton of feedback from players, and like that would be my up there biggest criticism is like move that bar somewhere else. It's incomprehensible
or
to have it there.
Give players the option. Like maybe
that too.
Maybe some people want to see it on their character because that's where their eye is. Like I don't know, but then make it brighter.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Sometimes you're watching a character, like you don't want to like glance up at a bar and see. That's probably their rationale for having it there. But I just think it's, with the way the camera is already, quite drawn out from your character and how small that UI, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not at all saying you're wrong. I think that's like the reasoning behind it, but on paper it makes sense, right? Like no, the eyes there, but then in action, or in practice, I can imagine there's a boss fight happening. There's a lot of shit happening on screen. How do you keep an eye on what's going on with your stamina? Like that's when it is helpful to have it completely separate. Like on the top, I can just glance and know, oh, okay, like I do or don't have stamina.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's like the one thing I would definitely want changed. Other than that, I've only played 4 or 5 hours around there, and I'm still figuring out some of the game systems. Like I'm in this main town now called Sacrament. and it is very confusing to navigate. So I'm just like picking up side quests and stuff like that. It's strange. The game's billed as like Moon Studio says you can play this game offline and solo. It definitely has multiplayer aspects to it. But then you've got the system that is like sort of like, daily and weekly bounties. So I'm like, how does that work within a solo context? Also, I really hate that you can only take one daily bounty at a time. You can only set one active at a time, which is like, I hate, like, Destiny does the exact opposite, where you go and fetch your dailies. You just like, you go and grab them all, and then you go out into the world and complete them all, and then you have to come back and turn them in. But if I can only have one at a time, I've got to like go do that one, come back, go do another one, come back. That seems a bit silly to me. So
I had no idea this game had multiplayer.
Yeah, definitely has multiplayer. I mean, I think an ARPG nowadays has to have multiplayer or some sort of co-op element to it. So yeah, curious to see how that works. I haven't seen other players or anything, so I don't know. Game looks gorgeous, as you would expect. Looks really good. Got really good character designs. Like, reminds me a lot of like Dishonored. It's got that sort of look, very over exaggerated like character features and stuff like that. I'm curious to see more. The setup for the game is very medieval. There's a plague. There's bad people who are in charge. There's that's pretty much the vibe I've got.
Your early access period, how long is it? Is it the first act, or do you not know?
I don't know. I have no idea. I actually meant to look that up the other day because I think it's quite substantial. I think there's like quite a lot to play. But it doesn't make clear at the beginning. I'm not sure. So nice. It's cool. It's out in early access on PC. There's no firm release date on like a 1.0 version. I bet it. Yeah, I don't think it'll be this year.
No, I think.
But
with games like this, just looking at other early access games that have gone on to be successful with launch window, it's like at least a year, if not more, before things actually get put out. Maybe it won't come out of early access. You got games that sit in early access for like a decade.
I mean, Baldur's Gate was in early access for like 3 years or something like that. It was ages. So yeah, I mean, they're going to be tinkering as much as they can, taking as much feedback as they can. And I think the game I'm playing today is going to be significantly different to the one that eventually launches. So yeah,
I'm definitely going to wait.
Game's good.
It looks right up my alley, but I'm definitely going to wait for final release.